We have the documents, the initial batch that had been sent by the White House. As you know, we also subpoenaed Pam Bondi for those documents. The White House is working with us. I want to publicly thank the White House for turning over so many documents thus far. We're in the process of uploading those documents for full transparency so everyone in America can see those documents. It's going to, as quick as we can get them uploaded, and as the Speaker said, there are 34,000 pages. So we're doing everything we can to get those uploaded. We want those to be public as soon as possible. And then we're going to continue to bring in more people. We learned of some additional names today. We're going to do everything we can.
These ladies were mistreated, of course, by Epstein and Maxwell, but also mistreated by our government. And we got to rethink the whole files thing. Apparently, there's some files that they don't want out. So I've said all along, we need to protect these young ladies. Well, they're ladies. I guess they were young. They were kids when it happened. So yeah, we need to make sure we do that. And
I was the second co-sponsor on Thomas Massey's resolution. After reading the entire resolution, I think it's very good. It's well written. It protects the victims, and it provides the transparency that the country deserves, and most importantly, the survivors deserve. Yes, I will be proudly signing the discharge petition.
Why is it important to do this in addition to what the Oversight Committee?
The president's called it a hoax. He's called it a hoax. I hope he doesn't say that after tomorrow when 10 of the survivors testify in public. That would be very disrespectful.
Boy. So we got to talk about Epstein. And the reason why we got to talk about Epstein is because for whatever reason, Congress has decided to make this their focus, okay? After taking a month-long break, right, with The View, right? They took a month-long break. They've decided that their main priority, okay, coming back on their first day, is going to be Epstein. Now, the reason why this Epstein story has now become a thing in the mainstream liberal media is because they believe that it can be used to attack and to smear President Trump. Okay, that is what Democrats believe. You also have some Republicans that are on board with this as well too. Some of whom I do believe are acting in good faith in the sense that they legitimately want transparency. They legitimately want justice for the victims. But I think some of them, again, are participating in the anti-Trump campaign. That clearly is the reason why Democrats are interested in this, okay? Because they've been telling us how Trump is trying to distract from the Epstein files, even though the Democrats and the liberal media had no interest whatsoever in this for the last 4 years. So, again, what have they been distracting us from for the last 4 years if the Epstein files are the most important story in the country, right? Again, so important that Congress has decided that they're going to make this their priority. However, Democrats and mainstream liberal media are probably going to be disappointed to find out that, once again, there is no evidence and proof that President Trump did anything inappropriate. Now, Ghislaine Maxwell claimed that President Trump did not do anything inappropriate, or put it this way, she didn't see him do anything inappropriate. Now, again, that's not enough for the leftists. That's not enough for the Democrats, right? Because ultimately they don't see her as trustworthy, right? She's just trying to get a pardon, right? She's just trying to get out of prison. So therefore, she'll say anything.
On why? Will you commit to having a hearing to determine why she was moved to a more favorable conditions after that interview?
We'll have a hearing to determine the crimes that were committed. The hearing is going to be geared towards seeking justice for the victims, not scoring political points like you all want. We're concerned about the victims and their request that someone finally be held accountable, because they weren't during the Biden administration, they weren't during the Obama administration.
I'm going to take.
They weren't during the Clinton administration.
The question was whether you would hold a hearing as
we'll have a hearing.
Was transferred. Why she was transferred after that.
We'll have a hearing, and if someone wants to ask that question, they can ask it. You can ask any question. We'll have a hearing.
But it wasn't a hearing on what the question was. And
you want to have a whole hearing, a whole entire hearing, not about the victims, not about a government cover-up, not about human trafficking, but about Maxwell, who you all were like begging to be deposed, and I did the subpoena. Now you're mad because she exonerated Trump.
Okay. Now, they don't have to believe her, right? I agree. She's not a particularly trustworthy individual, but Democrats told us that we should believe the victims, right? We should believe the victims. And I wonder if they're going to believe the victims who have come out and stated unequivocally that they did not see President Trump do anything wrong, which is what was said here during this interview with NBC News, who again is only doing this. They're only doing, listen, over the last 4 years, none of these people cared about this, right? They're now interviewing the victims. The victims are now coming out of the shadows. They're being interviewed and they're being asked about President Trump. And the answer that they're getting is not the answer that they wanted, which again is why I think that they're going to lose interest in this story once they figure out that there's really nothing here in regards to the campaign against President Trump. So without further ado, let's watch this glorious clip.
Yeah. Go ahead. I would say it's so big right now because this administration ran their campaign on this. These were promises that they had made.
Well, I disagree. I don't think that the president ran his campaign on it. I think that he made a very vague commitment to having the files be released, which, again, you know, I'm not surprised that, again, there's no evidence to prove that Trump did anything wrong, because if he knew he did something wrong, why would he even talk about this at all, right? The fact that he even entertained releasing the files obviously means that he didn't do anything wrong, because if he did something wrong, why would he even entertain this? Again, I knew from the beginning that there was nothing there when they kept trying to smear Trump. Trump definitely, again, was friends with Epstein. And I think what Trump has realized is that, oh, wait, they're using my previous friendship or relationship with Epstein in order to smear me, even though there's no evidence that I did anything wrong or was associated with that at all. And I think that's why he's calling it a hoax, right? And I think that is what people are confusing. That's what they're getting mixed up. I think he's calling the witch hunt against him a hoax, not necessarily the testimony of the victims, right? So anyways, let's continue here.
And if you're in that level, in that capacity, it's your diligence, it's your duty to do what your constituents, the American public is asking you for. So that's all we're asking.
Mm-hmm. And it's not just one side or the other. This is a nonpartisan issue. Mm-hmm. Everyone is asking, even his base is asking.
Mm-hmm. Has anybody in this room heard anything from anybody at the White House, or have your representatives?
No.
I do have to ask, and I know, and it's just something that I think we're compelled to at this moment, with the attention on President Trump, with these questions around a pardon. Did anybody see or hear of the president himself doing anything inappropriate as it related to Jeffrey Epstein?
No.
Or former President Clinton?
No.
Wow. Let's actually play that again, okay, for the leftists, okay, who have made this their new obsession, thinking that this is going to bring down Trump, right? That somehow, some way, Trump was involved in all this, and you know, he was doing the things that Jeffrey Epstein was doing.
Ask, and I know, and it's just something that I think we're compelled to at this moment, with the attention on President Trump, with these questions around a pardon. Did anybody see or hear of the president himself doing anything inappropriate as it related to Jeffrey Epstein?
No.
Or former President Clinton?
No.
I mean, I'm just saying, I don't think that the media is going to continue to have much interest in this story, okay? I really don't. I think that at this point, it is one of those things where they're essentially looking for something that's not there, okay? And they're using it, again, to smear the president, knowing that there's only so much that can actually be released. Like, for example, the administration has requested 2 judges to unseal some of the files, and the judges said no, they're not going to do it, right? So you have that. You have the stuff that's already been released by the DOJ. People are convinced that there's more, right? There's more stuff, okay, that should be released, even though they're saying that, hey, we don't really have that much more that can be released. These victims meet with Congress, and all of a sudden you got people coming out of the meeting saying, yeah, you know, all of those things. We wanted all of the files released. Yeah, we can't necessarily do that because the victims don't even want all of the files released just due to the nature of what's in the file. So we got to really rethink releasing everything, but we do want more stuff released. Now, again, what is the more stuff that the government is supposed to have? I don't know, right? I mean, nobody knows, okay? But again, some victims are convinced that there is more, okay, and that the government is hiding who may have been involved with the Epstein operation. And this is why they did the press conference in support of legislation that is being brought forth by Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna in order to have more transparency, right? In order to force the government to release more information about this without damaging the victims, right? That is essentially what this whole press conference was about, okay? And the victims are claiming that if the government is not going to release a list or release more information about who may or may not have been involved, then they're going to make their own list. But they didn't name any names.
The Washington establishment is asking the American public to believe something that is not believable. They're asking you to believe that two individuals created hundreds of victims and they acted alone, and that the DOJ has no idea of who else might have been involved, that nobody else did anything that rose to a criminal enterprise. The American people know that's not true. Now, the Speaker of the House just offered a fig leaf to my colleagues. They're going to vote on a non-binding resolution today that does absolutely nothing. I appreciate the efforts of my colleague James Comer, who's leading the Oversight Committee. They may find some information, but they're allowing the DOJ to curate all of the information that the DOJ is giving them. If you've looked at the pages they've released so far, they're heavily redacted. Some pages are entirely redacted. And 97% of this is already in the public domain.
The truth is, Epstein had a free pass. He bragged about his powerful friends, including our current president, Donald Trump. It was his biggest brag, actually. And while what I endured will haunt me forever, I live every day with PTSD. I live as a mother trying to raise my child while distrusting a world that has betrayed me. This kind of trauma never leaves you. It breaks families apart. It shapes the way we see everyone around us. But one thing is certain, unless we learn from this history, monsters like Epstein will rise again. There are files, government files, that hold the truth about Epstein, who he knew, who owed him, who protected him, and why he was allowed to operate for so long without consequence. Why was Maxwell the only one held accountable when so many others played a role? Why does the government hide this information from the public?
Transparency is justice. Release the files, end the secrecy, and stand with us in declaring that no one, no billionaires, no politicians, not world leaders, is above the law. And let me announce now, several of us Epstein survivors have been discussing creating our own list of names. We know the names. Many of us were abused by them. Now, together as survivors, we will confidentially compile the names we all know were regularly in the Epstein world. And it will be done by survivors and for survivors. No one else is involved. Stay tuned for more details on that. Because history is watching, and so are the women who will come after us. Thank you.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that, okay? The victims are claiming that they're going to release their own list. Now, during this press conference, there were no specific names named, okay, outside of them being mad at President Trump, calling it a hoax, right? Or saying that, oh, well, you know, Trump was somebody that Jeffrey Epstein would brag about. But again, no names, right? No names were named, okay? We keep getting told that, hey, there's this long list of people who are involved, and, you know, who knows? Maybe that's true. But for whatever reason, these names are eluding us, right? And we can't seem to really get any information from the government, from the politicians, from the victims, I don't know. But again, the president did react to this press conference as the press conference was happening. And yeah, I mean, he once again stated that all of this was a hoax, in which I think what he actually means is that the smear campaign against him is a hoax. And again, this is something that people are upset about him saying. Take a look.
Mr. President, right now there have been survivors of Jeffrey Epstein speaking at a press conference on Capitol Hill. They're calling for these case files, these documents to be released. And Thomas Massie, who is sponsoring a discharge position to get the House to vote on releasing those documents, says he doesn't believe you're implicated in these files, but many of your friends and donors may be, and he says that's why the Justice Department is redacting them and slow walking the release. Is the Justice Department protecting any friends or donors, sir?
So this is a Democrat hoax that never ends. You know, it reminds me a little of the Kennedy situation. We gave him everything over and over again, more and more and more, and nobody's ever satisfied. From what I understand, I could check, but from what I understand, thousands of pages of documents have been given. But it's really a Democrat hoax because they're trying to get people to talk about something that's totally irrelevant to the success that we've had as a nation since I've been president. Even if you look at D.C. right now, D.C., it's a totally safe zone. It's called a safe zone. That's a term. It's a term of art. It's a safe zone because it's very safe. You can walk down the street now and nothing's going to happen. No crime, no murders, no nothing. Because we had a lot of problems with certain places, and we still do. All run by Democrats, or for the most part run by Democrats. So what they're trying to do with the Epstein hoax is get people to talk about that instead of speaking about the tremendous success like ending 7 wars. Sure. I ended 7 wars. Nobody's going to talk about because they're going to talk about the Epstein whatever. Sir, I understand that we were subpoenaed to give files, and I understand we've given thousands of pages of files. And I know that no matter what you do, it's going to keep going. And I think it's enough because I think we should talk about the greatness of our country and the success that we're having. I think we're probably having, according to what I read, even from 2 people in this room, we're having the most successful 8 months of any president ever. And that's what I want to talk about. That's what we should be talking about, not the Epstein hoax.
Oh, I'll answer that. Mr. President Donald J. Trump, I am a registered Republican, not that that matters because this is not political. However, I cordially invite you to the Capitol to meet me in person so you can understand this is not a hoax. We are real human beings. This is real trauma.
What does it feel like emotionally to hear that?
Devastating. It's being gutted from the inside out. Not that I would know what that feels like, but I imagine it's the anxiety buildup with the depression and the survival mode, and then your nervous system goes limp and ironically is shot, and it feels like you just want to explode inside because nobody, again, is understanding that this is a real situation. These women are real. We're here in person. To say that it's a hoax is just not... Please humanize us. I would like Donald J. Trump and every person in America and around the world to humanize us, to see us for who we are and to hear us for what we have to say. There is no hoax. The abuse was real. Now, what goes on behind closed doors, I can't speak for that. What happens around the world politically, I cannot speak for that. But I am here with all of these women, including our attorneys, and I would be more than happy to meet with him, and I will meet him halfway.
Yeah, so you get the gist of kind of what's going on here. I think that a lot of people are misinterpreting the president when he says that, you know, it's a hoax. I think what he's saying is that, again, this has clearly become a smear campaign against him, right? The Democrats don't give a damn about the victims. I do legitimately believe that Marjorie Taylor Greene and others, okay, do legitimately care about the victims. I don't think they're doing this to smear the president. I think they're doing this in order to get justice, to get more information and transparency. And I don't have any problems with it. I have no issues with that whatsoever. But I do have issues with people who are using these victims for political gain, because that's clearly what's happening here. I mean, the whole thing kind of made me uncomfortable, right? I mean, just watching it, listening to it, it's like something's off, right? It just don't feel right, okay? Again, it feels like a political hit job rather than an actual, real, sincere effort at providing transparency in regards to what happened, okay? And I think is at the point now where this situation is becoming like a dog chasing his tail, right? It is never ending because there's not going to ever be enough that I think can be done, just considering the sensitive nature of this whole situation, okay, of all the allegations and the people involved. I just don't think there's ever going to be enough information released by the government that will satisfy people who are convinced that, you know, what they believe happened, right? And that, you know, people like President Trump were involved, right? And, you know, I mean, at this point, it's just one of those things where it's just getting into a territory that I just think is getting weird, right? It's getting real weird, right? So we're going to see what happens, right? These victims are saying that, you know, hey, now they're going to be releasing names. We're going to see what names are released. But you already heard there, some of them saying, well, we never saw Trump involved, right? They also said they didn't see Bill Clinton involved. So who knows, right? But what I do know is that at some point, the media and Democrats are going to realize that they're not going to get what they thought they were going to get out of this. They're not going to get these victims saying, you know, that Trump did something to them. They're not going to get that, right? And at some point, they'll realize that, and then the story will go away. But until then, they're going to keep talking about it. They're going to try to make a big deal out of it only because they think they can be used to smear President Trump. That's it, right? That's the only reason that they care about this at all. And I think it's shameful, right? I really do. I think that these victims are now being used as pawns. And again, that's why I think that this is getting into a weird territory that, again, is kind of making me uncomfortable because it's like, okay, well, what's going on here, right? Like, where are we going with this? Okay, when you clearly have people, Democrats, the liberal media, caring about these women, doing all of this, even though they didn't care at all before in the past, right? They did not care at all. Why is it that all of a sudden you care about this so much, right? Again, I just think it's disgusting. I really do. But again, there are some people, some Republicans, again, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, like Anna Paulina Luna, Tim Burchett, others, who I don't think are doing this out of Trump derangement. They're doing it because they legitimately care, and I'm okay with that, right? I'm totally fine with that. But again, it's the fact that you have these Democrats that are on board with this, that are trying to push this. That is, I think, is what's making me feel like, all right, like, again, we are getting into the territory where this has become more about politics rather than justice. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.